Hey guys, Matt Wilson here with my weekly video. Let me get that just a little bit. Okay, today we're going to do Aerosmith, 2 decades of Aerosmith from 73 to, well, I guess it would be 93. I'm just going to use the box of fire for it because this sounds great. On camera, it almost looks like the Stooges complete Funhouse sessions that I did, the Stooges video of the other. Interesting. Anyways, and then I'll use, the albums that they released after the Columbia years. I'll show you those, the CDs. I'm not going to do the solo stuff. There's only those 3 Joe Perry solo albums, Joe Perry Project. I will do the first one though because I have it and it's the best of the 3. But anyways, let's start with Aerosmith. Aerosmith was my favorite American hard rock band of the 70s. Peter Buck, the guitar player for REM, said in the liner notes to the Dead Letter Office album, REM's collection of odds and sods. I think he came out in '87. He goes, if you grew up in the '70s, you liked Aerosmith. Yeah, that's kind of how it is. We didn't think that they were better than Led Zeppelin or something like that, but they were about as popular as an American hard rock band could be. More popular, than Blue Oyster Cult. At least as popular as Nugent in the late '70s, if not more so. Nugent seemed to be rising at that point, and Aerosmith seemed to be declining. But I'll get to that when I discuss the albums. Alice Cooper the Alice Cooper band had their big heyday in the first half of the '70s. Aerosmith was popular for pretty much the whole decade, and their '70s albums hold up well. So let's begin. So yeah, this is that's the logo. It's the famous Aerosmith logo. It's got this little match on it, which you just lift up and the box opens up. You get a bunch of these CDs. Let's go over them. Oh, good. I started in the right portion of the box. This is Aerosmith, 1973. All of these CDs, see the SBM, Superbit Mastered or whatever it's called. Sound quality is good. This is a very good record. It came out, I want to say, right about the same time that Bruce Springsteen's first album did. The guys in the band here in Aerosmith always said that Columbia spent more time promoting Springsteen than they did Aerosmith. But, this was the one that radio played, at least after Walk This Way hit big a couple years later. Then you had Dream On from this album hit big. So let's look at the songs. And one more time there. You got Make It, which is a great song. Write Me is good. I'm just reading them. Moving Out is fantastic early song. Mama Kin is probably the most famous song on the album. That's not Dream On. Steven has the tattoo on his arm. One Way Street, fantastic. Somebody, great. And then Walking the Dog is the Rufus Thomas number, Atlantic or Stax Vault. It's very good. I guess Walking the Dog would be the only track that you could consider to be filler. But even that's not bad. Didn't the Stones do Walking the Dog? I don't remember. Anyway, and the Stones are a band that Aerosmith was compared to many times. But I think Aerosmith actually were more into Led Zeppelin than they were the Stones. But yeah, Mick and Keith, Glimmer Twins, Stephen and Joe, what were they, the Toxic Twins? Anyways, 1974, Get Your Wings. Now this is even better. There's no filler on here. This is one of those great underrated hard rock albums of the 70s that if you don't know it, you need to. 8 songs. Wasn't there 8 songs on the first album? Yeah. Except these 8 songs are better. It doesn't have a monster track like Dream On or, Walk This Way or See the Motion or whatever, but every song is great. See him there? Same Old Song and Dance, classic. That's on Aerosmith's Greatest Hits. Lord of the Thighs, awesome. Spaced, Woman of the World, SOS, Too Bad. Goes into Train Kept a Rollin'. Train Kept a Rollin' glides right into Seasons of Wither, one of their best ballads, if you want to call it that. Pandora's Box, which they named the box set after. There's not a weak moment on here. This album, 1974, not the greatest year for rock albums in the 70s, but, you know, any year in the 70s is virtually worth any year in the 80s. Another great album, great meat and potatoes rock album from the same year is Leonard Skinner's second helping. I think that's got 8 tracks too. Both of those are great. Look at the Aerosmith logo. It's very embryonic at the time. Not what it would morph into later on. But yeah, even better than the first album. All right, now we move into classic Aerosmith. Well, those first 2 albums are pretty damn classic too. This is Toys in the Attic. Now, I didn't prepare for this video. I've got a Sony Master Sound Gold disc of this. I got this album in 5.1. This is a classic mid-70s hard rock album. This is as good as it gets. This, you know, I mean, Americans, folks, you know, we didn't have bands as good as Zeppelin and Deep Purple and Black Sabbath, but Aerosmith were as close as we got. And this album, well, this album is better than Presence or Into the Outdoor. It's better than, you know, Technical Ecstasy or Never Say Die. You know, what else did I say? Purple. It's better than Stormbringer. You know, I mean, it's better than what's that one from '73 with Woman from Tokyo? I just did the Deep Purple video too. Who do we think we are? This is a lovely record. Toys in the Attic. I get that riff to this day stuck in my head. This song is over, you know, it's almost 50 years old. I love it. Uncle Salty is a wonderful deep cut. So is Adam's Apple. Kicks ass. Walk This Way, Immortal. Big 10-inch record is a cover. It's an old blues number. Sweet Emotion, an immortal song. No More, No More, Round and Round, and You Should Be Crying are all good, but none of those songs really, you know, elevate me the way that virtually anything on this album does. But it doesn't matter because the first 6 songs are so good that this is arguably Aerosmith's best album. Arguably. And the 3 songs at the end, they're not bad. I like them. All right. So, there we go. Well, if Toys in the Attic isn't their best album, Rocks is. When I grew up, I thought that Rocks was their best record. I mean, again, cut for cut. This is like Get Your Wings. There's nothing weak on here. That 1-2 punch of Back in the Saddle and Last Child, maybe the 2 best opening tracks of any Aerosmith record. Rats in the Cellar, love it. And, you know, it's as close to like speed metal as these guys got. Combination is a that's a Joe Perry song, right? Sick as a Dog. I get that song stuck in my head, you know. But your story, sick as a dog. Nobody's Fault is a kind of a Zeppelin-esque tune. Get the Let Out is good. Lick on a Promise. I like all these cuts. And then Home Tonight is kind of like their big closing ballad, and that's the same way that You See Me Crying was on this one. So these 2 albums, oops, holding it the wrong way. Toys in the Attic and Rocks seem to be their twin peaks, if you will. Draw the Line, 1977. This album's not bad. I mean, it's half of it is like classic Aerosmith, but just that the other half is kind of like, this is like their Blackout album. If you read their book, you know, the book that they all contributed to writing. They said that they don't even remember making this record. That's how out of it on drugs that they were. But Draw the Line is one of my favorite Aerosmith songs. It opens up the album. I Want to Know Why is great. Critical Mass is good. Get It Up. Bright Light Fright. Kings and Queens is the other classic that they played on the radio. In fact, they played that song from this album more than any others, more than Draw the Line. The Hand That Feeds, Cypher Sore Eyes are all right. And then Milk Cow Blues is like the old Elvis tune. It's funny that they do an Elvis song when on the next album, on Live Bootleg, there's a bit where they do a James Brown number on here where Stephen is saying Elvis isn't the real king, James Brown is, you know. But then they do an Elvis song. So half of this is great. I love that illustration. I used to have it wasn't necessarily a poster. It was like a big. I guess it was a little mini poster of this cover on my wall when this album came out. So what? I would have been 12 years old. But this album is less than great. I like it because I'm very kind to Aerosmith in the 70s, but by this point, Van Halen were right about to creep in the very next year, you know. So, you know, had Aerosmith maintained the level of excellence that they had enjoyed on those first 4 albums and extended it to this one, I think that they might have given Van Halen more of a fight, you know, the next year. But whatever, I still like it. Okay, so back to Live Bootleg. This is an average album. I wished it was better. Yeah, you know, every band released their live double in the 70s. This has, there's a lot of live Aerosmith in this box of fire. So this being the first one, you know, this is the one that was released when they were in their prime in the 70s. This is the one that we bought. It's all right. It's got, it has a healthy selection of their most famous tracks. It's got these earlier club dates from 1973, including the James Brown number. What was it, Mother Popcorn? Yeah, Mother Popcorn. Train Kept a Rolling. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I didn't go over that with you guys. An interesting little tidbit about the Get Your Wings version of Train Kept a Rolling. You know, that's the famous Johnny Burnett and the Rock and Roll Trio number, which they didn't even write. That was a song. It was like an R&B song or a jazz type number before the Johnny Burnett Trio did it. Anyways, on the Aerosmith version, the one that you've heard on the radio, you know, my whole life anyway, that's not Joe Perry or Brad Whitford playing the guitars. It's well, not the lead anyway. It's Dick Hunter and Steve Wagner, those 2 guys on the Lou Reed Rock and Roll Animal record. I hope I didn't get the names wrong just now when I said them. I'm not going to say them again because I might screw it up. Anyway, I've seen those, or one of those guys, I don't know if it was Dick or Steve, I've seen them online talking about that one guy, saying, yeah, that's him playing it. It's not Joe Perry. I've never heard Joe Perry address that. So I don't know why I didn't think about that when I was talking about Get Your Wings, but I thought about it when I saw. So yeah, Aerosmith Live Bootleg, it's okay. I'll tell you one takeaway that I have listening to this. You can tell I like live albums. I like to discuss them because people tend to overlook live albums in the discography of bands. The guy on Sea of Tranquility doesn't even include live albums when he's talking about an album, a band's discography. When you listen to this with the headphones on, or you're just concentrating upon the guitars that are coming out of the left speaker and the right speaker, you realize how much Brad Whitford plays guitar. You think every solo is Joe. That's not necessarily true. You know, this Aerosmith, it's a twin guitar attack. Yeah, Joe takes the majority of the flashy stuff, but Brad Whitford is a hell of a guitar player on his own. So that's a takeaway that I got from listening to this, you know, growing up. All right. After this was the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band movie. They were in there. They had that version of Come Together from that soundtrack that you heard. That was a hit. You heard that on the radio. There's also a great song around that time, 78, called Chip Away the Stone, which I think was a B-side of something. Was it Come Together? I can't remember. That's a great number, Chip Away the Stone. It's going to come up later on the Gems album, which I'll talk about then. But that should have been on, well, if it came out too late for Draw the Line, it should have been on A Night in the Ruts. But anyways, A Night in the Ruts is probably a more consistent album than Draw the Line, but I don't think it's got the highs. There's nothing on here quite as good as the title track of Draw the Line. No big radio song like Kings and Queens, but it's more consistent. You know, it's like when I was comparing the Doors, Morrison Hotel, which I think is more consistent than LA Woman, but LA Woman has the higher highs. So, you know, it's like pick your fave. Night in the Ruts is the last album, you know, with the classic lineup of Aerosmith for 5 years. Again, I like most everything on here. No Surprise is that's a highlight. Chiquita's good. Remember Walking in the Sand is just that was the single. That was just this old Shangri-La's cover, you know, Shadow Morton stuff. And I don't really Aerosmith doing a girl group song. Cheesecake is good. 3 Mile Smile. Reach for a Headed Woman. I like most of this stuff. Yeah, Bone to Bone. I mentioned Think About It on the Yardbirds video. They do a very faithful version of Think About It on here at a time in '79 when you weren't hearing a whole lot about the Yardbirds. So again, it's a solid record. If it's not great, but I like it, and they would make a better one for years. Okay, 1980. This one sold like hotcakes. This is Aerosmith's Greatest Hits. I never owned this growing up because I didn't need to. You know, I had the albums. It's got, well, it has all the obvious songs, but it's got some shortened versions, especially Sweet Emotion. The whole do 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 little intro is cut out for no. I mean, this is not a long LP. I don't know why they couldn't just put the full length version on, but whatever. But a lot of people, this has Come Together, and then they remember Walking in the Sand is the only song from A Night in the Ruts. But this sold better than any of their classic 70s catalog. And I think to this day is their biggest selling album. You could look it up on Wikipedia. But last time I looked, yeah. So it's just a nice little thing to have that comes in the box. Okay. You know what? If I'm going to do the Joe Perry album, I should squeeze that in right now, shouldn't I? Joe Perry left. Brad Whitford left too, didn't he? This was in, 80 or something like that. And he immediately formed the Joe Perry Project. They did 3 albums in the early 80s. This is the first one. Let the Music Do the Talking. I don't even have the other 2, nor have I heard them in their entirety, but from the tracks that I have heard, I think I can ascertain this is the best one. It's the Japanese version of the disc, Smokin' Joe on the back cover there. It's hard to evaluate a record like this because he's got, I don't remember the guy's name singing, but these guys clearly not Steven Tyler. You know, it's very difficult to get a really great singer when you're starting a band. You got Joe on guitar here, so if that's what you're looking for and you're missing that in Aerosmith, then this is fine. But I can't say it's a great album, but it's the best of the 3. And the title track, which is the best song on the record, Aerosmith would cover that a few years later when Joe and Brad come back in the band. So, Let the Music Do the Talking. It's pretty good. Don't even think it's as good as A Night in the Ruts, though. But might be better than Rockin' a Hard Place. Now, Rockin' a Hard Place came out in 82. What I always think when I listen to this record, Stonehenge on the cover, and then This is Spinal Tap came out a couple years later. what I always think about when I listen to this record is it's not as bad as I remember, or as I think, or as its reputation, as rep suggests. It's just okay, is all. None of these songs are great, but not too many of them are bad either. Jailbait, Lightning Strikes, Bitches Brew, all those are fine. Prelude to Joni, and then Joni's Butterfly. And there's the title track, Jig Is Up, Push Up to Shove. You know, all these song titles are familiar, but I don't remember how the songs even go. So I can honestly say in my entire life, I have not even played this album 10 times. And I saw them at this time. I saw them in '83 in San Diego. I was at the Comic-Con down there, and sleeping over there because we would get these gigs, my friends and I, as I don't know, a friend of mine would get this job for us where we could sit there for free. We had to work, and we'd show movies all night in some room, you know, for the guests, the patrons. It wouldn't be movies of our choice. We'd show what we were supposed to show, but just for that, you know, we'd get rooms. And I left one night to go to the show, the Aerosmith show in '83, and it was at the sports arena. It wasn't full, and Stephen was berating the crowd. You know, God darn it! We take a year off to go screw our old ladies, and this is what you give us, like he's yelling at us, who faithfully attended the show. He's blaming us for the absence of other people, but I just remember it being okay, you know, and then wishing that Joe Perry was there. But anyways, Rock in a Hard Place. Maybe not as good as Let the Music Do the Talking, but kind of comparable anyway. All right. Well, you'd think that would do it for this box, but no. You get Classics Live and Classics Live 2. Now, gosh, I want to get this right. Because what made this confusing is that you see pictures of Joe Perry on both of these albums. One of them, it's Aerosmith live in the '70s. The other one, it's the Joe and Brad Less version from the early '80s. But even that one, it's not that bad. You know, I mean, it's not like, yeah, it's the two guitar players are not there, but there's the new guys are still playing. I think Rick was one guy's name. They're still playing Aerosmith songs, so it's not like the sound is that much different. Obviously, the one, which I can't remember now, that is of Aerosmith in the '70s is better, but neither one is bad. Neither one is bad. All right. Okay, and oops, and there's Gems. I thought there was 2 Gems. No, I guess not. Anyways, Gems is a direct companion piece to Aerosmith's Greatest Hits because it does. There's no tracks that are repeated. If you get both of these, then that's a pretty good two CD overview of their '70s career. And this is the one that's got. Jailbait even has, yeah. So it's not all. Wait, Jailbait was on. Yeah, Jailbait was on. So that's even from the '80s. Okay, so anyways, and oh wow. Oh yeah, there it is. Couldn't find it. Chip Away the Stone. This is when the radio first started playing Chip Away the Stone that I noticed. I didn't know. I don't remember that song being played in the '70s. So I like this. You know, this is a nice little. These 2 albums form a companionship in much the same way that Bob Dylan's Greatest Hits Volume 1 and Volume 2 do, or The Doors' 13 and Weird Scenes Inside the Gold Mine do, or the 1966 King's Greatest Hits and then King's Chronicles in '72. You know, 2 great compilations that don't share the same track, so you can buy them both. All right. Okay. After that, we have Done with Mirrors. Am I holding this up right? Done with Mirrors. Yeah, I think it's upside down. It goes like that, right? Yeah. This came out in '85. This is when Joe and Brad returned to the fold. There is a little cult around this album which claims that this is the best 80s Aerosmith record. I don't know if I believe that. The production on here is weird. The songs are, for the most part, good. It starts off strong. They do the Joe Perry Project track, Let the Music Do the Talking, which is better sung by Steven, but he does change the words. And because of the production of the record, I'm not actually sure I like Aerosmith's version better than Joe Perry Project's version. It's almost a toss-up to me because they sound different. My Fist or a Face is pretty good, and then the rest of the album is fairly, I mean, there's some average songs on here, but I don't think it's as good as people who love this album claim. But it's definitely better than Rock in a Hard Place. All right. So if you want Aerosmith in the '80s, pre-Permanent Vacation, I mean, there's no song doctors on here. It's the band, and Joe has said in the past that they didn't have enough time to record this record. That had they had like a month as opposed to a week, these songs might have turned out better. But it's not bad, I like it. Okay, for the last three records I'm going to talk about, those are the big ones. Those are the big comeback stuff from '87 to '93. Permanent Vacation, this is, I don't know how long I've had this CD, but chock full of hits. Radio was all over this. Hearts on Time was great. Magic Touch. Ragdoll was big. Dude Looks Like a Lady was big. Angel was big. I'm Down is the Beatles song. So, first, before this, they had, Run DMC had resurrected Walk This Way in '86, I guess it was. And Aerosmith was suddenly relevant again. Or at least they were for 15 minutes. It was up to them to, they had sobered up. They got some song doctors in here to help them write all this material, right? '80s production, it's much better produced than Done with Mirrors. And, wow, hit it out the ballpark. I can't say this is a great record, but a whole new flock, a whole new generation of Aerosmith fans came on board for this. And again, this album was huge. But I think even better is Pump. Pump is '89. Also chock full of hits, just like Permanent Vacation. We got Young, Lust, Fine going down, then Love in an Elevator. That was huge. Monkey on My Back, Water Song. Janie's Got a Gun, another huge one. The Other Side, big. What It Takes. I mean, of the three albums from '87 to '93, this is the best one. Now, is it as good as classic Aerosmith in the '70s? Not to these ears, but I'm biased towards the '70s. If you're younger than me, if you came to Aerosmith at this point in time, I can see how you might think this is their best album, but better than Toys in the Attic or Rocks? No. No. And amazingly, they did the trick all over again in '93 with Get a Grip. Now, by this time, I don't think anyone's really calling this a great album, but it had lots of hits. And that's what they're doing here. That's what they want. They're maintaining their legacy. They're coming up with new songs that the radio is eating up every time that they make a record. Living on the Edge, Crying, amazing. I mean, these albums sold by the truckload. I mean, Van Halen wasn't selling like this at this point, and that's where I'm going to end. All right. I mean, 9 Lives is fine, but I wanted to do '73 to '93 because if you're not going to say that Aerosmith were in their prime in the 70s, certainly the first 20 years was their prime. After that, they didn't really matter anymore. But their erosion in popularity was slow because they were big for the rest of the 90s. That song, I can't remember what it was, but it came out in 2001 on the Push album. It's good. It was a hit. Jaded, I think it was called. When their book came out in the late 90s, I bought it and I went down to Ventura Boulevard to the Tower Records there. They don't have it anymore, and they were all there, signing the book, and I, got all their signatures. Even my wife at the time got Joe Perry's wife in the parking lot to sign the book. So if I would have remembered, I would have shown you guys that. But anyways, parting thoughts on Aerosmith. What are we at? 30 minutes now? 31? Good. It's not going to be a long one. Yeah, I think I already said it. I think they were the closest thing that America gave to compete with the big British hard rock bands. They were never metal. And then Van Halen came along right when Aerosmith began to dip. That first Van Halen album came out in 78, and it's sold more than any Aerosmith 70s album. It's like as soon as Joe and Steven got too involved in drugs and started to put out less than great albums, Nature Abhors a Void and all of that. So I'll do a Van Halen show eventually too. But we didn't get 20 great years of Van Halen. So anyways, Aerosmith, Matt Wilson signing off.